Ta-Nehisi Coates explains his article on Bernie Sanders to Chris Hayes. Stacey Dash blames Obama for Oscar's diversity problem. April Reign joins me to discuss. Sarah Palin blames Obama for her son's arrest. Robert Reich poses the question, who lost the white working class? And J.P. Rankin of the Progressive Army joins me with an update on the Flint, Michigan water crisis. Progressive Army, this is the Benjamin Dixon Show. Buckle up and let's do this.
The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog and join the Progressive Army. And now, ladies and gentlemen,
you're now about to witness the truth.
It's the Benjamin Dixon Show.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Benjamin Dixon Show. I am, of course, your host, Benjamin Dixon. It is Wednesday, January 20, 2016. Thank you so much for joining us. A lot happening in the news, a lot happening across the world, but more importantly, a lot of things happening right here in the United States of America. So many things I want to talk to you about. I want to talk to you about Ta-Nehisi Coates just got off of Chris Hayes discussing his article. So we'll definitely discuss that. I'm going to push that a little further in the show. I want to talk first with my sister, if I can say this, my sister from another Mr. April Reign. She has been all over the media, like with the hashtag that she created, Oscar So White. She's been on to the Today Show, Good Morning America. She's been all over the place talking about the need for diversity in the academy. But more particularly, we're not just going to talk about the hashtag. We're going to talk about Stacey Dash. Yes, clueless Stacey Dash. She was on Fox News, her home away from home, discussing really kind of crazy. I'll just play the clip and let you decide for yourself. But she's going to join me briefly to discuss that. I also have J.P. Rankin of the Progressive Army. He's from Flint, Michigan, and he's coming in to discuss the Flint water crisis and everything. Give us an update on that, particularly with President Obama, the state of emergency, the federal funds, and some federal funds that aren't going to Flint, Michigan. I also want to talk about Hillary Clinton's support of Rahm Emanuel, while she's simultaneously telling Rick Snyder he has to go. So we wanted to unpack that a little bit. So there's a lot of things happening on tonight's show. I'm actually going to circle back and come back to April, who's having a little technical difficulties. So what I'll do first, I'll start it off with this. Actually, maybe I should just save it, right? Maybe I was going to start talking about Ta-Nehisi Coates. Let me say this. So there's a lot. Today's been a really active day. And a lot of criticisms of the criticism. A lot of that happens. A lot of criticisms of the criticism happens, saying, essentially, I don't have the place or the right or to criticize his critique. I'm going to be more than happy to unpack that in a little bit. And she popped up in my room and now she's gone. April, you're playing with my emotions, April. So no problem. We're gonna table April until she gets the camera right, and we'll talk about Stacey Dash when she comes in. So then let me just go finish up what I was saying. So April, now I have to finish it up, and as soon as I finish this rant, then we'll jump in on Stacey Dash. So anyway, I just got through watching Ta-Nehisi Coates on Chris Hayes. And thank you so much for sending me that tweet. I didn't realize he was going to be on. It was on. And it was a good conversation. It was a good conversation in the sense of he made his point. He made his point clear. One of the things he pushed back on, really the only thing you can push back on of our critique of his critique, is that in a sense, he feels as though those of us who are pointing out Hillary Clinton's lack of support for reparations, he feels that we're simply deflecting and that we're not allowing Senator Sanders to answer the question of, if he's so radical, why would he not support reparations? Well, so no, I'm not deflecting. And now we're going to go right into it because now it's starting to bother me again. We're not deflecting. Here's something I want to tell everybody, from Feel the Burn to Black Lives Matter to those who are on the political periphery, those who are just making observations like myself. We have a choice to make. We don't have an infinite number of presidential choices, particularly because of the way this particular campaign season has gone. We're really down to two choices. Martin O'Malley could have been a better candidate, but he's not. He's at 1%. He probably won't even make the next debate stage, maybe. We have two choices. And if we're having a conversation about who's going to be the better choice, then anytime an argument comes along that is going to be in itself a red herring to the choice that has to be made, then it's one red herring deserves another. One deflection deserves another. The conversation about reparations, my friend, is quite a red herring and a deflection from the real campaign. So don't be mad at Ta-Nehisi. First of all, I like him. I like him because he's got that New York fight in him, and you could tell that he's a little irritated with people criticizing his article, with the type of criticism, right? The deflection, and so I really like that New York fight in him. I love it, actually. But don't be mad when we throw one deflection, because one deflection deserves another, right? This entire conversation about reparations is quite irrelevant to the very real election that's going on right now. We can try to make it relevant to people as much as we want, but realistically, it's a non-starter. It has absolutely nothing to do with what happens on election day. And so to have that thrown into the political fray as something that should take the attention of everybody, and everyone should pause. Everyone should pause and take a look at Bernie Sanders not supporting reparations. Then it becomes political fodder. And you have people like Hillary Clinton and her team and her supporters all of a sudden pointing out to the Black community, oh my God, Bernie Sanders doesn't support reparations, when they know good and damn well they don't support it either. So yes, perhaps saying we should look at Hillary Clinton is a deflection, but I would argue that the entire article is a deflection from the real issues that can be addressed in this election. Whether or not you want to talk about reparations in terms of a theory, sure, but in terms of reality, not a single person has pointed out to me one presidential candidate in the last 100 years that has supported the case for reparations. So I could also ask the question, why the hell are we even talking about it? If you want to know why we're pointing out that Hillary Clinton doesn't support it, why the hell are we even talking about it when nobody supports it? We can discuss it in theory, but in terms of the real decision that we have to make in the next few weeks, it serves as nothing but a red herring that many Black people will chase after, and Hillary Clinton has no problem seeing them chase after it. Now, out of respect for my friend's time, I see her camera's up, her camera's working. I'm going to stop midstream. And it's kind of hard to do, but I'm going to discipline myself, and I'm going to circle to my friend, April Rain. April, let me make sure your mic is nice and good before I even do a full introduction. I have the thumbs up. Ladies and gentlemen, my fabulous friend, April Rain. Oh, I don't hear you though, April. I don't hear you. Is it me? Did I do something? Hang on. Let me see if it's my problem. Did I do it? Go ahead and say something else for me, April. No, April, we don't hear you. And I think I have everything up. All your volumes are up. I'm double checking everything, April. Try your volume one more time. No, I don't. I don't hear you. But I could give you my secret number and you could call in. Let's do that. So I'm going to drop you my number inside of our Twitter message, and you can call in and we'll see how much of a delay. We'll just deal with it that way. And here we go. And I appreciate all my listening audience. You guys, hey, hold tight. She's going to call in and we'll just do it that way. While she calls in, I'm going to prep this video of Stacey Dash. Now, there's a theme going on in two of my segments tonight, particularly with blaming Obama and this their uncanny ability to make anything in the world be a problem for President Obama. April, how are you today?
I'm fine, thank you. Sorry for the tech problem.
Not a problem. And actually, the delay isn't too bad from your lip sync to your audio, so we'll make it. April, I'm going to play this clip of Stacey Dash on Fox News, and I want to get your feedback and just tell me what you're thinking. And first of all, thank you for taking your time to be here. I know you've been on a whirlwind media tour. And we'll talk about that later because I know you want to get some rest. So I'm just going to play this clip of Stacey Dash on Fox News this morning.
This morning, there's some growing outrage with some over the lack of diversity in this year's list of Oscar nominees. Filmmaker Spike Lee and actress Jada Pinkett Smith say they're not going to go to the Oscars next month after an all-white list
And of course,
of nominees was
of course, I
announced.
started at the wrong
It's
place.
ludicrous.
Here we go.
Why?
Because we have to make up our minds. Either we want to have segregation or integration. And if we don't want segregation, then we need to get rid of channels like BET and the BET Awards and the Image Awards, where you're only awarded if you're black. If it were the other way around, we would be up in arms. It's a double standard.
So you say there shouldn't be a BET channel?
No, I don't think so. No. Just like there shouldn't be a Black History Month. You know, we're Americans, period. That's it.
Are you saying there shouldn't be a Black History Month because there isn't a White History Month?
Exactly.
Okay, that's all I could take of it anyway, April. This later on in the interview, she manages to blame the lack of diversity on President Obama because President Obama gets support from the liberal Hollywood elite media. So somehow this is his problem. So we have a couple of things going on. One, she doesn't think we should have Black History Month or Black Awards because that's a form of segregation because white people can't win those awards. And we can talk about the factual, whether or not that's factual or not. And then two, she blames President Obama for it. April, I'm just going to turn you loose. No, I can't hear you now. I lost you again.
Can you hear me okay now?
I can hear you fine. Go for it.
Okay, so what?
Oh, goodness. This is live TV, ladies and gentlemen. I lost you completely, April. Maybe this is not meant to be tonight. What do you think?
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you when you're in your phone. That's the only time I can hear you.
Okay, so I apologize. Yeah, live TV. So the first thing is that, in fact, white people have won BET awards. Sam Smith won, I believe, the Best New Artist just last year. And I believe Eminem has also won an award, a BET award.
Right.
So she's just wrong. Literally, factually, she's just wrong. And then to say that there's some type of correlation between having a black president and not having roles for black people. Why does she even care whether there are roles for black people? Because what she says is that you just need to work harder. So all of a sudden she's concerned because it's Obama's fault that we don't. But at the same time, I don't know that we shouldn't be concerned about them. It really just didn't make any sense. But clearly, there's no correlation. I thought initially she was going to say that because there's a black president of the Academy, that there should be more roles. But no, she went just completely off the rails and said because we have a black president, there should be more black roles in Hollywood. And it just doesn't make any sense. The reason why we have award shows that celebrate us is because, in part, we aren't celebrated for our achievements at the Academy Award Show and other award shows. So it's necessary that we focus there.
Right.
So, and let's be real. I think BET, I thought about whether I was going to sort of wade into the fray on this today. And I just watch everybody else. And it's like, we got you. Like, you don't even need to worry about it. And so that was wonderful because BET took Stacey Dash to task because she used to she was a character on a TV show, a BET TV show, and took their checks. And so that was fine. But now, for whatever reason, she's not on BET anymore because she's completely forgotten who she is and she's on Fox. And so now, all of a sudden, since she's finished with BET, the entire network shouldn't exist, which makes absolutely no sense. Similarly, when you talk about having Black History Month celebrates the highlights and highlights the achievements of Black people on the shortest month of the year because they are not celebrated in the way that they should be. than the other 11 months of the year. So what is White History Month? Well, it is March through January. So that is so, I think Fox News needed someone of a certain skin tone to come on, and speak out against the movement, which is really taking off. And I'm happy to see that. And she wasn't doing anything else, so she might as well, come on and give her, her 30-second spiel.
So you said a lot there, and the thing that stands out the most to me is, one, she's just absolutely factually wrong. There have been white people who have won Image Awards. There have been white people who have won the BET Awards. There have been, there's not
right.
the Soul Train Awards.
You look at the and you look at the Grammys. White people have won the R&B category, which was traditionally a Black category. So you name it. In any award show, we have been inclusive of white people, and so this is really, again, about equality of opportunity. And it's unfortunate that she, you can't really make a strong statement if your facts are wrong.
Right. But that's and this is maybe I won't bother you about this conversation, but feel free to give commentary on it. That's the problem, right? The biggest part of the problem is that they are allowed to state things that are just simply factually untrue. They're just wrong. And it plants a seed in the audience that there are millions of viewers that now they honestly think that there has been no white person to win an Image Award. And so now I was doing my own research, and they're literally thousands of conversations of people who wonder if BET is racist because they have a BET Awards and they never award white people with that award, when in actuality, that's just factually untrue. So they live in this world of an untruth. They make an argument based on it. They get upset about it. And then they even go as far as to vote based on something that's an actual lie. And so here we are now, they're making this case against BET, Black History Month. And it's not really a case. It's just her having her 30 seconds of fame on Fox News. But it just speaks to the underlying question of the need. Is there a need? Why is there a need for diversity, even when people like this are speaking so counter to it? Of course, I know the answer, but I know the answer, but I just want you to talk on it.
Sure. There's a need for diversity and inclusion, because we all should have the opportunity to see ourselves, on TV, in film, and in songs. Mm-hmm. So in all walks of life with respect to art, and on stage as well, the little kid who's 5 or 6 or 10 years old should have the opportunity to see someone that looks like his mom or dad, up on the big screen. And Stacey has been a part of that as well. So if you look at her body of work, such as it is, it makes you wonder, with some of the choices that she's made, and clearly her choices lately have been less than stellar, and BET again took her to task with her. I think they had the 10 most clueless moments based on her former TV show.
Wow.
And who knew that word was not just the title of the show, but spoke about one of the stars as well.
April, we could chat all night about a bunch of things and a lot of topics that I'm sure you probably want to chime in on, but I know you're on a whirlwind tour. Be sure, we got to debrief. You got to tell me what it's like, what it was about. You just when it slows down, hit me on Twitter so we can talk. Tell everyone how to get up with you and where they should find you.
I am Reign of April everywhere, REIGN of April. My website is reignofApril.com. I'm most on Twitter at Reign of April, but also Facebook, Instagram, and all the other social media sites. Thank you for having me on. It's always a pleasure. So I appreciate you so very much and what you're doing every day with the Progressive Army. So
the pleasure is mine. And thanks for the shout out to the Progressive Army. We love that. We love that around here. Let me give my sister from another mister a big hand of applause. Ladies and gentlemen, April Reign. Be sure to check out her media role. Like, she's been everywhere. She's going to be everywhere. She's the founder, the creator of Oscar So White. We had a conversation about Oscar So White like last year, right after it really kicked off. So I'm excited to see that people are hearing the message. And let me just be real. I'm glad they're hearing the message, but I'm glad they're hearing the message from April. So that's my. Can I say you're my girl? That's my girl. Girl sounds so condescending, but you know what I'm saying. Like, my people's April Rain, everybody. All right.
Thank you.
My pleasure. So next up, I'm going to be talking with JP Rankin, and he's part of the Progressive Army. He's from Flint, Michigan. President Obama has declared a state of emergency, but there's some interesting nuances going on in Flint, Michigan. One, they were not granted all of the federal relief that they could get because it was not a natural disaster. However, they did get access to some relief because it is a state of emergency. President Obama, he is sending resources there to aid them. Rick Snyder has conceded that he has failed the people of Flint, Michigan, but it is not enough for him to step down. And joining me to discuss the updates, regarding Rick Snyder is JP Rankin. He helps me out here with the Progressive Army. He is very active in the city of Flint, Michigan, and knows exactly what's going on. JP, how are you?
Hey, how you doing, Ben? How you doing this evening?
I'm doing good. Tell us about some of the update us on Flint, Michigan, and the water crisis and President Obama's relief.
Okay, just a couple things. One, yes, there is still lead in the water, so let's not lose sight of that. Number two, our mayor took it upon her own as she was visiting the conference of mayors from across the country to go and knock on the White House door, and was able to have a conversation with President Obama in the Oval Office about not only what our situation is right now, but the things that precipitated it. Right. Very similar to what I gave you the rundown when we did the Progressive Army takeover a few days ago. So she had a chance to chat with him. However, he would not bump the declaration up to the highest level, which was a little disheartening. But after thinking about why he didn't do it, he didn't want the state to not have their vested interest in this disaster as well. So I believe that there was some holdback to see if the state is going to follow through on what they need to do. Yesterday, our governor had his state of the state, and with the state of the state, he ended up pledging $28 million to the city of Flint for a variety of measures, but none of it having to do with infrastructure. So the infrastructure is still the same. We're running water through bad pipes, and we're trying to filter the water out. President Obama, while he is in Detroit tonight at the auto show, did take a moment to bring about this idea. And he said something that it resonated with me as a father. And he said, as a parent, I would be highly PO'd if I had a child who through my thinking that everything was okay, now I've actually hurt them for life.
Right.
So that's where we are right now. The National Guard was dispatched. I don't know if any of you had a chance to see Michael Moore on Racial Matter either yesterday or the day before, but he had me laughing because he simply said the governor dispatched the National Guard, and he sent of all of 7 National Guardsmen out to pass out water.
Wow. So his dispatch of the National Guard, what he considered a dispatch, was 7 people for the entire city of Flint, Michigan.
Yes, there are some state troopers that have been out as well, and some other folks. But the idea is that Governor Snyder, for some reason, is not making this a full court press. He's almost, I'm not going to say he's stumbling as he's going. I believe he's trying to put the least amount of effort forth that he potentially can.
But why at this point, why, when that's going to make the situation worse? That's what I don't understand. Why is he not going all in to show that, one, we made a mistake. Okay, we didn't catch it soon enough, but damn it, we're going to fix it now. Why is he not bringing that attitude to the fight?
You know, that's a great question. I've learned something about people who have been able to amass wealth. So our governor is rather wealthy, and they didn't get wealthy giving money away. They got wealthy keeping money. At the end of the day, it seems as if he's just pushing a little money forward. That's it.
The price, the cost, and ultimately, how much would it have cost? I saw somewhere it was a minuscule amount of money that it would have cost to avoid this entire crisis.
Yes. They said it was $100 a day. $100 a day in the water would have taken care of the issue.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a shame. That's heartbreaking. And now you have kids who are suffering from not only kids, but elderly people, and then potentially some regular, all ages, brain damage, bone damage, just full-fledged lead poisoning. Their lives are changed permanently because they couldn't spend $100 a day.
Permanently. And again, that's why when you really go back and look at this issue was a monetary issue. This was done because Flint is under emergency managership, and it was an emergency financial managership. So the good of the community and the good of the people are never the end goal. Right. It is balancing the book. And so this is why you have the same problem with our school district. Our school district has been running a deficit for years.
Right.
The governor passed a law that said all school districts had to balance their budget. So sure, you can balance the budget, but at what cost? Mm-hmm. At the cost of educating the kids, getting the kids the things they need. This is the situation that you have in Detroit. Why you have all the teachers who are not showing up for work, simply because of the fact that they don't have what they need. They're operating in substandard conditions. And at the end of the day, who suffers the most?
The kids.
And you want to know why there's a disparity between, people who go to good school districts per se and people who go. It's not good school districts and bad school districts. It is school districts that are funded and school districts that are not funded.
Wow.
So that's what we have going on here. So again, he says that he's given a lot of good rhetoric. He almost broke down and cried during the State of the State, and I never try to mess with people if they're being genuine or not.
Okay.
The issue with me is that there still seems to be a slow rollout. There is not a all out. Look, my mother lived here, so I'm gonna do everything possible to make things right.
Right. Absolutely. JP Rankin, thanks so much for joining me, man. And with that update from Flint, Michigan, you guys are in our thoughts and our prayers over there. Hope you guys can get this thing squared away. The president is chiming in, and we're hoping this can get resolved. And most importantly, man, I just hope that there are things in place for all of those elderly people, and particularly the young people who now have an entire life ahead of them, suffering from the effects of lead poisoning. So thanks so much for joining me, man.
Well, hey, not a problem. And it's called, what do they call those? Class action lawsuits. That's what's happening right now.
Yeah. Unfortunately, that seems to be the recourse. JP Rankin,
absolutely. Progressive
Army. Thanks so much for joining me, man.
Anytime, Ben. Have a good one, man.
You too. All right, folks, the phone lines are open, 857-600-0518. I want to discuss something that stands out to me about Rick Snyder and the water situation in Flint, Michigan. Hillary Clinton made a statement essentially saying that Rick Snyder needs to be out. And I agree with her. Rick Snyder needs to be out. Michael Moore goes one step further and says Rick Snyder needs to be charged because people are dying from this. Right. There are people whose lives are going to be changed for the rest of their lives, but they're dying from this right now. And so there is culpability there, and he should be charged. But at a minimum, he should not be the governor of Michigan. That's number one. The problem I have with Hillary Clinton saying that Rick Snyder needs to be out is that she hasn't gone that far with Rahm Emanuel in Chicago, who now the floodgates are open with video after video showing police officers killing unarmed or fleeing black men, only released out because of court orders. And conveniently suppressed during an election, that if these videos came out during the election, he clearly would not have been reelected as mayor of Chicago. But while Hillary Clinton is saying that Rick Snyder needs to be out of Michigan, she says that she has support. She has confidence, rather, in Rahm Emanuel. Now, I'm not dumb. I wasn't born yesterday. I understand that Rick Snyder is a Republican, so it is that much easier for her to turn on him, or not even turn. She was never, that's nothing. Let's get out of there, Rick Snyder. But the damage that has been done in Flint, Michigan, and the damage that has been done in Chicago with the schools that have been closed, with the lives that have been changed permanently, with the people who have been killed, and the cover-up, I think that also calls for her to sever her support of Rahm Emanuel, who is now doing all of these photo ops with as many black people as he can. That's the hilarious thing. If you look at fusion.net, they have a story showing Rahm Emanuel just doing photo op after photo op with all the black people he could, trying to do, had an MLK breakfast the other day, trying to rally the support of the black community, only to have black pastors boycott him and to have someone protest in the middle of his event saying, resign, Rahm. But he's doing everything he can to convince the black people that he's still good with them, even though it appears as though he has actively suppressed these videos, or not appeared. He actively participated in making sure these videos were not released. Now you can lay the reason, you can determine the reason. The reason is arguable. He can give his case. We believe the reason is so that he could get reelected, but he actively participated in this process. And yet this is still the person that Hillary Clinton has confidence in. I'm not just going to talk about Hillary Clinton. This is still the person that Barack Obama has confidence in. So I think it's disingenuous for us to take the easy route out and only condemn the people who we are not politically aligned with. If we're going to be true to ourselves, if we're going to be true to our constituents, if we're going to be true to our progressive values, then that means that some people who have a D by their name have to go down too. And Rahm Emanuel is the first on my list of people who no longer need to be in office in the United States of America because of the dereliction of duty, because they have let their people down. It's not just Rick Snyder. Granted, the situation in Flint affects the entire city, but so does the closing of some 40 schools. And so does the shooting deaths of so many young black men, not only by police, but by the gang violence in Chicago. At some point, people have to be held to account for their lack of leadership on issues. And I just don't understand. Hang on, I'm lying. I do understand. I simply want to call them on the carpet and say, I don't care if you consider yourself an ally. If you're going to call for Rick Snyder to resign, you need to be calling for Rahm Emanuel to resign, or else you yourself should not get our support. Caller, you're live on the air. What's your name, comment, and or question?
Hey, Ben. I just wanted to get into this larger conversation, which you bring up Rahm Emanuel. I know Obama is actually supposed to have lunch with him after he leaves from Detroit to Chicago. So I think any critique is not happening from the Obama administration at this point. But I have to disagree with something you said about Hillary and the governor of Flint, because everything I've seen from her surrogate is saying a very different thing than what you said her position is that in that same interview that Brian did on Aaron Burnett I talked about yesterday, he said, and on NBC this morning, and multiple other surrogates saying the same thing, Bernie has called for the governor to resign over what's happened before the Democratic debate, he did it over a week ago. Hillary has not done that. And in fact, Brian Fallon insulted Bernie for doing that and said that it's a perfect example of the fact that Bernie's for empty threats and promises, while what her response was she said that the governor should do these specific things to prove he's actually doing something and much more. And then 2 hours later in his press conference, he laid out his plan, and they said, because his plan looks like what they said, they're taking credit for him making the moves he's making now to show that the pragmatist progressive that gets things done, while Bernie is the one who just calls for him to resign and has no real plan. So I disagree with, after seeing that multiple times, I can't agree that once she wants him to resign, she's just not really bold enough to say that. Then nowhere near bold enough to say Michael Moore.
Well, of course, she's not going to. She's absolutely not going to say to have him arrested. That's clear. I'm actually pulling up the New York Daily News article that discusses her comments on Governor Rick Snyder, and I'm trying to read it as we go. So she has come out with one. Let's make sure we're clear. She's not going to say for him to be arrested. That's number one. And I'm perusing this article as we go. But the bigger point is that she is standing by still today, to this day, Rahm Emanuel. And it's a clear disconnect between her willingness and President Obama's willingness. Right? I'm not letting him off the hook on this. Their willingness to stand behind someone who's a part of the Democratic establishment because they are part of the Democratic establishment when they have just as much blood on their hands as Rick Snyder currently does, maybe not in the long run, right? Rick Snyder's this thing in Flint is going to last for the entire life of everyone who's there right now, right? So this can go on for much longer, but still, it still speaks to the ease with which we can call out someone who's not on our football team, but we're not going to call out the people who are on our team who are doing a disservice to our own constituents and our own people that we would consider allies. So more importantly than anything else, it's the fact that they're not calling out Rahm Emanuel. Solomon, thanks so much for the call. Oh, go ahead.
Well, there was one more thing that I wanted to say. Well, I actually had a question I didn't ask yesterday. I want to say first that I'm So Establishment hashtag is still trending on Twitter, and that whole conversation is still amazing me. But the question I had was, when I noticed polls all the way back in the fall that goes back to the black establishment thing and the questions about reparations, is that looking at things like the difference between Nevada and South Carolina, Bernie got Hispanic support to a much greater degree, much faster than he did black support. And he got Latino activists. His Latino activist support is massive. People who he's hired onto his campaign, it came very quickly, very early on, when they saw his plan, and they saw his plan was clearly the best and that Hillary supported private prisons. They immediately saw that he was the obvious choice. And they've been supporting him and building a giant field operation in Nevada and other Hispanic majority states. And to see that clear contrast between that and how the black populace has responded to Bernie Sanders in a much more skeptical way, and especially in leadership, it begs the question, is the reason that's happening because the Hispanic community doesn't have the same historic set in stone black establishment politically that
I would argue, to a certain extent, I would argue, yes, that's the case. There is a very strong, I don't want to misconstrue this. There's a very strong Hispanic coalition, activists. They're there, and they have been a part of the Democratic Party for a long time. But there are more. Let me unpack that as I go, as I talk. I want to unpack that as I circle back on the Ta-Nehisi Coates article.
Okay.
All right. Thanks so much for the call, man. Thanks so much for the call. Folks, tweet me at the BPD show to join the conversation. And you can also call in 857-600-0518. I want to circle back to finish up the conversation about Ta-Nehisi Coates. Then I'm going to segue over to Sarah Palin, Robert Reich, and then we'll be done. So if I remember correctly, I was discussing that Ta-Nehisi Coates really called our critique of his article a deflection. And, my argument, my response to that simply is that I think his entire article at this point is a deflection from the real choices. It's a binary choice, right? That Martin O'Malley doesn't even count. We have two choices. Now, you could always choose not to vote, right? I don't think that is an intellectual decision at all. I've said it once. I've said it a dozen times. Anyone who thinks that they are so smart or they think that they are smarter because they choose not to participate in the political fray. I think they're actually not as smart as they pretend to be, because this system that you complain about on an everyday basis is shaped by the people we either elect or don't participate in and allow to get elected. So this option of not voting is this cop out of pseudo intellectualism that ultimately further empowers the system that you complain about every day. So when I say you could always not vote, I'm saying that sarcastically, tongue in cheek, because in reality is if you've ever complained about this system, then you sure as hell better be voting to fix the system. Now, that being said, if you believe that this system is a two-party system, then you only have two choices, the Democrats and the Republicans. You can go Green Party, but Diverger's law pretty much predicts that it's going to remain a two-party system. There's really not going to be a third party that's going to get power in our single district representative democracy. All right, go look up all those things. It's legit, right? So you could vote for the Green Party. I get a protest vote. I get all those things, but let's drill down to the voting population. Those of us who are going to vote and those of us who are going to vote for one of the two major parties, if you believe remotely in anything loosely connected to progressivism, then you're going to vote with the Democratic Party. Unfortunately, that's the case. I wish there was a third party. I wish we had four parties. Hell, I wish we could have an election like the United Kingdom has, but that's not the case. And I'm saying all this to say we're really down to a binary choice. We're down to a choice between Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton. And so when we are down to such a narrow choice between two people, and we're trying to decide which one is going to have the most positive effect on the lives of the people we talk to every single day. We're trying to find out who's going to have the most positive effect on minorities, for women, for LGBT issues, for across the board. Bottom line, who's going to have the most progressive policies? Then the conversation about reparations, which is not inside of the political fray, it is not up for consideration from anybody. Or unless you are simply saying that perhaps Bernie Sanders can start the conversation on reparations. If that's your argument, maybe. But I'm not going to that's not the argument that was made. The argument that was made by Ta-Nehisi Coates was that here we have Bernie Sanders being radical on this, but he's not radical on that. In my opinion, that entire article is a deflection from this choice that has to be made. It is a deflection that has been used and weaponized by Hillary Clinton supporters to further place a wedge between the Black community and Bernie Sanders. There has been a concerted effort by the media class, the Black media class and the Black political elite. The Black Democratic establishment is what I call them. There has been a concerted effort to make sure that Black people never get a chance to give Bernie Sanders a chance. It has been, and here's the thing, you have to understand, you don't have to support Hillary Clinton to help Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton's name recognition fixes that. You don't have to endorse Hillary Clinton. All you have to do is distract people away from Bernie Sanders, and it would have the same exact effect as supporting Hillary Clinton. All you have to do is make Bernie Sanders the bad guy, and that would have the same exact effect as endorsing and supporting Hillary Clinton. So when an article comes out that vilifies Bernie Sanders over something that everybody can and will and should be vilified over, including Barack Obama, then I consider that a red herring that is thrown out to Black people for them to chase and to pull them away from the candidate who would address the economic issues. Yes, he's going to address it outside of the paradigm of reparations, but I'm not going to shed one damn tear over it because he's addressing it from the place that we are right now. You make the case for reparations, good, that's your job. What I'm saying is, in the absence of reparations, Bernie Sanders is the best hope for people who are suffering underneath the current economic paradigm. And so now you have everybody running around saying, oh, Bernie Sanders doesn't support reparations, completely making them oblivious or ignore, or you're deflecting from the reality that his economic paradigm is going to fix, or at least address, at least start the conversation on some of the things that plague the Black community and the poor communities across the nation. So when you ask me about why Bernie Sanders doesn't support reparations, I'm going to ask you why Hillary Clinton doesn't. Is it a deflection? Yes, but this entire conversation is a damn deflection. The entire thing is a red herring. It absolutely, yes, it has its place. Every conversation has its place. Great. But for it to be thrown out as red meat to turn Black people away, that and whatever, let me say this. It doesn't matter what you intended your article to do. And I'm saying this to everybody listening. It doesn't matter what you intended your words to convey. What matters is how those words were received and how those words are mobilized and utilized is probably the better word. You may never have intended your article to be a tacit support for Hillary Clinton, but by not juxtaposing Hillary Clinton's exact same policies, vilifying Bernie Sanders, then your article has been received and used for the purposes of supporting Hillary Clinton, whose policies are the exact same status quo that has been ravaging the Black community for the last 40 years. So whether or not you intended it to be a direct endorsement, not even a direct, I'm sorry, you didn't intend it to be a tacit endorsement, that's what it is used for because of Hillary's grip on the Black community. And I hope this is making sense to somebody. It makes perfect sense to me. Usually what makes sense to me makes sense to everybody else who listens. But what I'm saying is you don't have to campaign one day for somebody who has an 80% stranglehold on the Black vote. You don't ever have to say, go vote for Hillary Clinton. All you have to say is, look at Bernie Sanders. He doesn't support reparations. Or the new thing, right? The new thing that Hillary Clinton did herself. She got her hands dirty with this. Look at Bernie Sanders. He doesn't support Barack Obama, which is the same exact strategy of saying, Black people, you can't trust this old white man because after all, he's an old white man. And somewhere in that old white man's existence is white privilege and white supremacy. And unless he bows down to the call of Black Lives Matter, unless he bows down to the call of every third tier intellectual, not Ta-Nehisi Coates, he's not third tier. I give him a good second string, second to Mike to Cornel West. But these third and fourth string intellectuals who are trying to hold Bernie Sanders accountable to them, and saying, come on my program and talk about white supremacy on my program. And all these people with platforms who are just really doing nothing to help the situation of Black people. You're only hurting the situation, the economic situation of Black people. And that's the other thing that pisses me off. Okay, I'm warming up now. I'm warming up and it's almost time for me to go home. The other thing that pisses me off is that you cannot make the conditions of African Americans in America right now solely focused on police brutality or white supremacy or systemic racism. You cannot make the case of systemic racism and white supremacy without talking about the very thing that Ta-Nehisi Coates, I actually took this from him when he said that the entire point of white supremacy was the extraction of wealth, right? You can't address it. So all of these second, third, fourth, fifth, not even second, fourth, fifth, and sixth tier voices that are shouting down Bernie Sanders and causing people to not look at his economic policies and how they would be beneficial to the Black community and every single community. They're all distracting from that, and they want you to focus solidly and solely on police brutality and white supremacy and making sure that he has his privilege in check. Your privilege is showing. Listen, I understand the nuances of all those things better than most. I'll challenge any of you on any given day of the week to debate those very specific issues. I can show you how they are in play right now today in ways that most people don't even see. I get it. Right? I get it. But I also realize that if you're not talking about the economic component, then you are not talking about fixing the root of the problem. Ta-Nehisi Coates seems to feel that reparations is the only way. He pretty much expressly said it in his article. This is the only way to really address the economic paradigm, the economic problem, rather, that Black people are facing. And there are plenty of economists who disagree. I disagree. I disagree because, one, if we're waiting on this mythical thing that is as far away from us as, oh hell, let's say universal health care, right? Let's just go ahead and throw that out there and muddy up the waters more. Let's just say we're waiting on this thing, this one thing, to be the solution when there are other things that we can be implementing along the way. Then all we have is a convenient muse that we can always use to argue about, but never do anything over. And that is the intellectual apathy that pisses me off that I talked about last night. People have this one little niche, this one little corner, this one little spot where they can argue for the rest of their lives. And I'm talking about the voters, not the voters. I'm talking about the intellectual class. I'm talking about the media heads. I'm talking about the politicos. They find this one little thing that they can argue for the rest of their lives because they know good and damn well it will never happen. It's like those people who sit around and argue that we need to overthrow capitalism. Listen, I'm sorry. In our lifetime, in the existence of the United States, we're never overthrowing capitalism. You're not overthrowing the American government. Those things are not going to happen, but you have people who take these positions and they argue them incessantly because it's something they never have to be held accountable for because it would never come to pass. And you have all of the viewers. This is why it's important. You have all of the viewers sitting on the periphery, sitting at the feet of all of these people with influence, listening to this, their drivel, that even though theoretically it may be very sound and very apt, pragmatically it will never happen. And you have people who jump off the ship and say, I'm not even going to consider a Bernie Sanders, or I'm not even going to consider voting at all. When we're in a system where you have two choices right now, for better or worse, that's what we have. And we can argue all day whether or not there's a feasibility of a third party. Political science says no, not in the American system. But we have two choices. And when we have red meat that's thrown out and people start chasing after it, only to deflect them from the one candidate who has economic policies that would actually address the problems that reparations could have addressed 150 years ago. But in the absence of reparations, Bernie Sanders' platform is the only thing remotely close to being willing to try to address the issue. So that being said, no, we should not entertain these questions anymore. Enough of it, period, point blank. From now on, Bernie Sanders should not address a single Black issue that Hillary Clinton has not first addressed. Because we have placed this bar on, we placed this undue burden on Bernie Sanders that we are not even willing to place on anyone else. Now, the burden itself is worthwhile, but not if you're going to place it, not going to hold President Obama to it, hold Martin O'Malley to it. Hold everyone to account. Hold everyone to account of the issue of Black Lives Matter, economics in the Black community, Black wealth, along with everything else. And now, and we'll talk about this in a minute, now they're even trying to make Bernie Sanders out to be a misogynist, and a homophobe. They're doing everything. They're pulling out the big guns. Before I go there, caller, you're live on the air. What's your name, comment, and or question?
How you been? It's Bryce.
Bryce, what's going on, man? Thanks for the call.
Doing good. I'm 100%, behind what you're saying, because we look at the whole, I guess, thing. We're Black, and I understand and respect the Black conscious community, and I understand racism, separatism, all the things. I understand all the issues, but when you have a candidate like Bernie that has talked about every issue, that has put out a complain about every issue. It's like, why not support that? Why, don't vote because the system and all that. But we can bring change if we come together and if we really stand together. Now, some people will say, well, we did that for Obama, and look what happened. And I know it hasn't gone the way he wanted it to go for Barack, but even with that, doesn't mean that you give up. Regardless. Like,
exactly, man.
It doesn't make any sense. It just blew my mind. And today, the whole Stacey Dash thing, just, oh my God.
You know what it speaks to, Bryce? It speaks to the fact of how, I think I'm a humanist first. And I think we're all created equal. But in terms of politics, in terms of the political fray, it shows you exactly how important the black vote really is to the Democratic Party, that they will pull all of these guns out to make sure that the black vote never gives Bernie Sanders a chance, a snowball's chance in hell. So I'm with you with that frustration that you feel, man, that it really speaks to the fact that they have unleashed everything they have. Because if Hillary Clinton loses even 15 to 20 points in the minority vote, she's done. Now, I'm just throwing that number out. I'm sure it might be around 30 points, but I don't even think she has to lose 30 points in the black community in South Carolina to lose, to be in a statistical dead heat. And that shows you how important the black vote really is. Man, thanks so much for the call, man. I have a lot of them backed up, and thanks for your patience.
Always.
Thanks a lot. I wanted to read this tweet from someone on Twitter. They said, that's right. Haha. Reparations. Hillary doesn't even support $15 minimum wage. And you want to ask about reparations. I have to agree. I mean, what's the point of talking about reparations when we can't even get Hillary on board with $15 an hour for minimum wage? That's the frustrating thing. And okay, thanks. All right, so reading a couple comments here. If you want to join the conversation, you can call in 857-600-0518, tweet me at the BPD show, or join into the chat room on YouTube, where my moderators are doing the job that they have to do. Moderators, make sure you got me covered in the chat room. All right. That being said, let me talk about another dynamic of the Democratic Party that Robert Reich so eloquently laid out in his piece today on Huffington Post, discussing who lost the white working class. I was counting on somebody. Somebody don't let me down. You had Robert Krugman, however you pronounce it, and you had Ta-Nehisi Coates, let me down. So I was like, come on, Robert Reich, he's got to say something. He didn't address this issue of the issue of reparations at all. But he did start unpacking the question of why so many so many working class white Americans have migrated away from the Democratic Party over the years, but more the stark contrast with this year in their support of Donald Trump. And so he makes the case for one. It's a twofold case that he makes in the Huffington Post piece, which I think you should definitely read. And I'll have the name next time. But thanks so much to the person who shared this to me on Twitter just before the show. I had just enough time to read it. So twofold argument is that, one, there is the contingency of white working middle class Americans who left the Democratic Party because of racism, right? We saw that definitely in the 60s with Governor George C. Wallace, and how he was a Democrat, and with the passage of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and Voting Rights Act of 1965, we saw a mass exodus of white working class people. But that really doesn't speak as much to why the working class is still out, right? Why they've stayed out. And he begins to unpack in this article about the Democratic Party ultimately losing their way in terms of their relationship with Wall Street, in terms of their relationship with the labor unions, in terms of their relationship with free trade, and the expense that their newfound policies has cost the average working American, particularly white in this case. And so he begins to unpack the scenario of promises made and not kept by Bill Clinton and Barack Obama. He recalled the time that he was in office with Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton made a campaign promise for the labor unions and intentionally ignored it after the fact once he was in office, not willing to expend one dime of political capital on keeping his campaign promise to labor unions. And we saw a decline in membership underneath of labor union membership underneath Bill Clinton from 22% all the way down to 12% today because of some of those policies that he decided not to act on. Same thing with President Obama, promises made, promises not kept that would have benefited directly the working class. White working class, yes, but the working class across the board. And so he's really making the case that the Democratic establishment has lost its way. And a lot of people get mad when you discuss the Democratic Party in terms of being a part of the establishment, but you're just getting mad with the truth, right? The Democratic Party today is really more subservient to or more beholden to Wall Street than they are labor unions. Is there anyone who's going to debate that and willing to debate it statistically? No, there's not. They answer more to Wall Street than they do labor unions. And that's number one. They answer more to Wall Street than they do the average American. And so there's this obsession that Robert Reich talks about with this middle class, this unicorn of a demographic that the Democrats believed were independent, and they felt like it was a class. The soccer mom class is what he calls it, the soccer mom class, and the class of people who have enough wealth and enough investments in Wall Street that they now need to be catered to specifically over the concerns of labor unions and over the concerns of the working class. And Reich considers this almost like a figment of their imagination that they chased after to the detriment of their own base. Now, I would argue that that 1964 transition, where we saw a lot of the white working class, that mass exodus from the Democratic Party because of race issues, I believe that contingency and that vein of thought is still here. And that's why they are overwhelmingly going over to not the Republican Party, but Donald Trump, right? So Donald Trump feeds on this exact scenario, on this exact demographic, rather. He feeds on the fact that they feel disenfranchised. They feel left out. They are struggling economically, such that there's the Nobel Prize winning couple who wrote an article about the mortality rate amongst this same demographic of white, poor, lower educated people killing themselves more, drinking themselves to death, overdosing. That's how bad their economic situation is. And Donald Trump actually speaks to them, not only from an economic message of soft populism, economic populism, but he also strikes that same vein in nationalistic xenophobia, right? He really stirs up everything that pulls that coalition together, everything that triggers them, right? Their latent bigotry or their outright bigotry, not bigotry, their latent bigotry or their outright bigotry on top of their woes about their economic plight. And now they have a guy and their woes with the political correctness. Now they have Donald Trump, who has a trifecta, right? That's Donald Trump in the nutshell. In a sense, Reich is making a case for Bernie Sanders' attempt to appeal to this base, because sometimes we make a caricature of them and make them seem like they're not real people, and that they are, even if they are real people, then they're troubled people that are just racist. Robert Reich kinds of unpacks that and makes the case for Bernie Sanders to go after them. But in my opinion, you still have to be mindful of that thread of bigotry that's left there. And the question is that I've always posed in this conversation is, can Bernie Sanders strike that? Let me start again. Can these voters relinquish their desire for this racist rhetoric and this racist scapegoating in exchange for an economic paradigm that would be beneficial for them? In other words, can they, the question, what's the matter with Kansas? Can they get over their religious objections to gay marriage? Can they get over their fear of all things Muslim? Can they get over their disdain for migrant workers and immigrants? And can they get over their disdain for Black Lives Matter? If they can do all that, then Robert Reich has made a great case for a lot of people never voting with the Democratic establishment, but possibly voting with Bernie Sanders. I think it's a tall order. I'll leave that for you to decide for yourself. Caller, you're my last call of the night. What's your name, comment, and or question?
I'm from Brooklyn.
Brooklyn's in the house. What's happening, man?
Oh, you know what? I really like all the information that you brought forth about the show, but I was hoping to also remind you that if you could look at how Trump, or even better still, how the Tea Party does it. It's I guess it's a new media business term, but they fix it in niche. And this is the thing you did with the Progressive Army. What I'm beginning to see more and more on social networks, especially like YouTube and Facebook, is this is the sort of thing that we got to remember that we can do here.
Yeah.
I remember last night you were discussing that, people were discussing, it might have been your show, but while I work, I listen to a lot of stuff. So if I get it wrong,
no problem. No problem, man. Go for it.
Strategy. I don't think anybody's imitating King. I just think the strategy is different because we're different. We're dealing with a different level. That's all. But we can do this. Your Progressive Army is a perfect example of that. And start with the believers. Don't worry so much. I mean, yeah, worry because that's why we got to get this done. But I'm saying these are the things I'm saying progressives have to do that imitate what they do without becoming them. Be aggressive about it. No more nice. Like I like the way you're going. No more Mr. Nice about this. Forget about it. I think my G-show would be aggressive. Learn to stick your middle finger up every once in a while.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
There's an old Tom Cruise movie. I think it was his first one called Risky Business. With a catchphrase for it, sometimes you guys say, what the F? And if you can't say it, you can't do it. And GOP, Trump's, all these people, they can do it. We need to learn to too. And we can do it if we just do it.
Right.
It always starts slow, but builds momentum. I'm going to let you go on that.
Thanks so much for the call, Umar. Always inspirational. I appreciate those words. Yeah. What better place? I have some more here. I mean, it's already 10:08 and I still haven't gotten to Sarah Palin blaming President Obama for her son's arrest. I really wanted to connect that to the article on Stacey Dash blaming President Obama for the lack of the diversity in the Oscars. There's this propensity in conservatives to do everything they possibly can to bend over backwards, to become contortionists in order to blame President Obama. And now with Sarah Palin, her son was arrested on Monday night at a rally tonight for Donald Trump. She basically made the case that veterans suffering from PTSD, their symptoms are magnified and amplified because of President Obama's lack of respect for the military. And I've already opened the can of worms, so I might as well keep going. Whatever. So there's two problems with this, right? Let me reiterate. Her son was arrested for being drunk while having a firearm and domestic violence, beating up his girlfriend. And he was arrested right before her endorsement of Donald Trump. Doesn't sway them at all. She continues to give the endorsement Donald Trump embraces her insanity. And tonight she answers it. But instead of addressing personal responsibility, instead of addressing her son's need to get treatment, instead of addressing her son's need to be responsible for his decisions, to be responsible for the fact that he was carrying a weapon while he was intoxicated, to be responsible for the fact that this is not the first time that he's been arrested for violence. He got into a fight back in 2008 with alongside his sister Bristol, right? They bust someone's head open. Instead of talking about him being responsible for his own actions, she decides, what better way to get out of this than to blame Obama? Somebody mentioned on Twitter, like, don't they realize at this point that blame Obama is actually a parody, is actually, you know, sarcasm, and that everyone is hip to this game? I would say everyone that has working, functioning digits is hip to this game, right? Because if you've looked at the history of issues with veterans in the United States of America, there has been no greater opponent to funding research, to funding, better funding the VA, for funding jobs for veterans coming home. There's been no greater enemy to those issues than the Republican Party. And now, instead of taking this as an opportunity to speak up about it, she decides to, let's minimize this conversation to being about President Obama not respecting the military. Well, I think that's convenient, right? Because the Republican Party has been opposed since, I think, as far back as 2005, dealing with the Iraq War. They have been opposed to policies that would have benefited the veterans coming home from the Iraq and Afghanistan wars. So they have no interest really in post-traumatic stress disorder, except for when it's convenient, because her son, instead of taking personal responsibility for his actions, notwithstanding he could be suffering from PTSD, we're bleeding heart liberals. We'll give him the benefit of the doubt. But instead of doing what they would do with everyone else, all of a sudden PTSD is an actual thing that they will even acknowledge, but only for a few seconds before they throw it away and say, blame Obama. This is what we're dealing with. This is the level of idiocy that we're dealing with. This is the level of absurdity, that the blatant disregard for hypocrisy. We're dealing with, and what's bothering me is I see traits of this on the left and creeping into the left even more. That really bothers me. I see people dismissing facts in exchange for convenience. I see that creeping up in the left, and I want to yell at the top of my lungs, you know, I don't care who it is, right? Whether it's somebody supporting Bernie Sanders or somebody supporting Hillary Clinton, you know, let's be factual. Let's be, sound like I'm blowing my mic out. Let's be true to the facts of the story and to the data. But I see the insanity on the left, on the right, and I'm like, we have to fight against this tooth and nail. We have to fight against this no matter what we do. We got to make sure that this type of madness never gets in power. We need to help the Republicans. We need to help the Republicans purge themselves of the insanity that they expose themselves to. Yes, it is the Republicans' fault that people like Sarah Palin and Donald Trump can get and obtain and power. But for the sake of our democracy, we need to help them get back to their true conservatism so that we can actually have informed debates between two parties, right? We can't have an informed debate between one party. We need to have an informed debate between two parties, but we're actually dealing with a party that is the Democratic Party, and then we have another party that is completely insane. And again, I can't, just to throw this in here for free, I see some of that insanity creeping over into our willingness to dismiss the truth, dismiss data, ignore the facts in exchange for support for our candidate. I see it with Bernie Sanders supporters, and I see it with Hillary Clinton supporters. It is across the board. And I would advise us, let's not become the monster. Let's not allow ourselves to become the monster that we've been fighting against for so long. Maybe this should scare you guys straight. Don't become the Sarah Palins of the Democratic Party. Whatever the facts say, whatever the data says, whatever the story really is, we don't have to exaggerate it. We don't have to manipulate it. We don't have to use propaganda. We have the truth on our side. We can mobilize. We can weaponize the truth. We can weaponize knowledge and fight back against it. That's the point of the Progressive Army. And you too, going into my plug now, you too can become a part of the Progressive Army. Go to theprogressivearmy.com, register for our notifications, consider becoming a Patreon, www.patreon.com/the BPD show. Thank you to my recent Patreons. I'll give you a shout out on Twitter. Thank you so much. Pledge $1 a day. If you can't pledge anything, then you can share these videos. One, you can subscribe. Make sure you subscribe on Spreaker and on YouTube. But then for every $1 that you cannot afford to give me, I want you to share that every single day. If you wanted to give me $5 a month, then share my video 5 times a day. And then you might get tired and say, okay, I'll pledge that $5 a month. Folks, I'm at the end. I'm out of energy. I will see you guys tomorrow. And that's a wrap.
The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog, join the Progressive Army, and support The Benjamin Dixon Show.
Crazy mother.
If you like this episode, be sure to share, like, and subscribe.
Consider becoming a Patreon. Go to www.patreon.com/the BPD show and support the Benjamin Dixon Show.
Listen, more important than anything else, my 1-year anniversary is in 2 weeks. We've done everything that you've seen, every video, every article, all this has been done in less than a year. I believe my very first episode was like February 12th, February 9th, whatever, the second week of February. Help me reach 5,000 subscribers. I only need like 300 more on YouTube. Help me reach 6,000 subscribers on Spreaker. Go subscribe, share, tell everyone about it. I'm kicking ass and taking names for progressivism. I don't care who they are, where they're from. You send them to me. If they're bold enough to debate, we will debate and we will get down to it. Throw me on your shoulders. I will be the people's champ. There's no fight that I'm afraid of fighting, but I need your help. And it starts by helping me get to 5,000 subscribers. So now I love my closing music so much. I'm going to run it one more time. I'll holla. Not that one. The music after this.
The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog, join the Progressive Army, and support the Benjamin Dixon Show.
Crazy mother.
If you like this episode, be sure to share, like, and subscribe.
To see what's behind those doors.
Consider becoming a Patreon. Go to www.patreon.com/the BPD show and support the Benjamin Dixon Show.